Good afternoon. After romantic poetry, we have to move towards another form, that is the Victorian poetry. It was developed in the period of Queen Victoria. It is also called as the Victorian age. The Victorian age was the age of material prosperity. The British Empire spread far and wide during the reign of Queen Victoria. The sun never set in the British Empire. Naturally, the Victorian became highly complacent. The Victorian age refers to contradictory qualities in the mind and the spirit. It was outwardly materialistic, but inwardly it was guided by deep spiritual vitality. The term Victorian poetry refers to the verses composed during the reign of Queen Victoria in England. It was the period of 1837 to 1901. This period was marked by the tremendous cultural upheaval. There were a drastic change and development in the form of literature, art and music. Although the Victorian poetry was quite different from that of the preceding era, yet there were some similarities that existed between these two periods. The most important and obvious characteristic of Victorian poetry is the use of sensory elements. Most of the Victorian poets used imagery and the senses to convey the senses of struggle between religious and science, ideas about nature and romance, which transport the readers into the minds and the hearts of the people of the Victorian age. The major characteristics of Victorian poetry can be understood by some points. They are realism, focus on the masses, speciesism, science and technology, then questioning to God, sense of responsibility, morality, interest in the medieval myth and folklore, use of the sensory devices and imaginary and sentimentality and humor. Such points can be seen while seeing the characteristics of the romantic poetry. The Victorian poetry was quite realistic in nature and quite less idealized too as compared to the romantic poets, who were idealistic and believed in art for the art's sake. Nature, that was everything for the romantic, lost that idealized position in the Victorian era and became just a source of leisure and inspiration for the poets. The romantic poetry mainly focused on rural and rustic life. It is nowhere related to the city life. On the other hand, Victorian poets used language as well as themes common to the city life, thus wrote about the masses and for the masses. Masses means number of people who are living in the city. As already discussed, we are quite realistic and thus we are more concerned about reality rather than ideal world. Due to industrial revolution and advancement in science and technology, there was a drastic increase in the city population that gave rise to the slums, poverty, unemployment, corruption, diseases, deaths, etc. Thus, Victorian poetry, which focused on the pains and sufferings of common man, had a note of pessimism on their life. The advancement of science and technology and invention was welcomed by the Victorian poets. They made them believe that a man can find the sole solution to his problems and sufferings. They made their readers believe that they should use science for their betterment. It was an important feature of Victorian poetry. The development of empirical science, rationalism, and radicalism led the people to give up the religious thoughts and be more skeptic. Moreover, corruption in the church, defining the morality of priests, etc., also led the people to question the religious institution. A sense of responsibility, romanticists believed in the return to the nature. A number of the romantic did not like the city life and instead of giving voice to the victims of industrialization, they left the city. On the other hand, Victorian poets took the responsibility of social reform and give voice to the commoners by living with them. Though morality saw a steep decline in Victorian era, a number of poets tried to retain morality by encouraging the people to be honest and noble. The Victorians showed great favor toward the medieval literature. They loved mythical and anecdotes of the medieval knights, country love, etc. Thus, this interest is on contrary to the romantics, as the latter loved classical myths and legends. The poets of the preceding are use imagery widely, however, the Victorians also used the sensory devices to describe the abstract senses of chaos between religion and science. The Victorians wrote about artistic creations, thus giving way to deeper imagination. A number of poets wrote humorous and whimsical verses in this period, for example, bad ballads. Victorian poets are also known as later 19th century poets. Most of the writing of this period reflects currently social, economical, and intellectual problems. The poetry of this period shows the crisis of religion and philosophy because of the development of science. Tennyson is one of the most skilled and self-conscious poets of the Victorian age. He is typical Victorian who adopted the conventional religious and social views and values of this period, that is the Victorian period. His early poems were much more accepted by gradually he sharpened his skill. Tennyson's later poems are serious, thoughtful, and musical. His poems, the ideals of the kings, is referred by many people even today in Morte d'Arthur, turned Mallory's story into poetry. The Princess is the collection of these fine which shows his best mysterious and musical qualities. Browning is a major Victorian poet who voiced the mood